I forgot to ask you, do you like your car?
I love my car.
I love my car. I love my car. I absolutely love my car. I love my car.
Our main criteria for reviews here at inCARnation Australia is that the cars have to be interesting. This is an interesting car. 3.3 litre, twin turbo, rear wheel drive, Kia Stinger. I was involved with them on the launch several years ago when they were first launched here in Australia. I haven't driven one for a while. I'm really interested to see how it goes on the road today.
Hello everyone, Mark and Stu back again, this time also from Korea. Kia Stinger 2018 model, 274 kilowatts, 510 newton meters, but importantly all that torque is delivered from about 1400 revs, so it really does pull from down low. Runs on 91 octane fuel. You could run it on just regular unleaded, which is unusual, although the owner of this car doesn't. She puts premium in, and I would too.
Yeah, I would as well.
For sale, there's about 130 for sale, so that all the leases must be running out.
It's a few, isn't it?
Only 12 of the 4-cylinder,
Yeah,
and 120 of the...
Yeah, they're a bit unloved, aren't they?
It's still a good car, but if you're going to get one of these, you go, nah, I'm getting the V6. I'm going with the Mumbo. And the 4-cylinder motor, by the way, is virtually the same as the Theta that we had in the i30N. It's the same basic engine, just detuned a little bit. But surprisingly, that car 0 to 100, 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Which, okay, it's a lighter car, 1,690 kilos, but nonetheless, that's really good. Yeah, that does put that down
really good,
nicely.
I mean, we've still got the traction, the stability control on. It's not kicking in at all.
That turbo doesn't tail off, does it? Keeps on going. Feel a lot of weight transfer.
It does, doesn't it? The brakes feel, it's not a particularly nice feel.
Yeah.
It's a little soft and it doesn't give me a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Just pinched a little bit of ABS back there. You can just feel that cutting in. But yeah, the thing that really impresses me is it's got a lot of power, it's got a lot of torque, as we've discussed, just how well it puts it to the ground. We know this car has a really good launch control function. I've used it hundreds of times demonstrating it. You don't really need it. Just put it in drive, put your foot down. This thing just takes off beautifully, and it just puts all that power down, and you're not getting any traction control kicking in either. So it just tells me that the mechanical side of that, the way they've engineered that is great. The diff, the rear suspension's working in unison really well. The seats are good. We've got good lateral support. When we go from comfort mode to sport, it does. The bolsters on the side do tighten up a little bit, just hold you in a little bit better. The seats are very good.
Okay.
One of the slightly annoying things about these cars, I mean, these days you expect to be able to get your gear lever and put it into sport mode there and use your paddles effectively like a manual car, but this, you just can't do it. It does have the paddles here.
But it just went to manual mode when you started
Yeah, I
using
mean, if you pop it down a gear there, it'll, you know, I go into third gear there now.
Yep.
It'll stay in third gear for a little bit, and then it'll go back up to drive. Whereas I would expect it's just gone up to drive there now, so it's straight away back up to about 7th gear.
Okay.
And you don't really expect that these days. You really want the thing to stay in the gear that you've selected until you change it.
Does it also do it in sport mode?
Well, I'm in comfort there now. Obviously, if we go into sport mode, it'll just lengthen all that up a little bit. That changed by itself.
Oh, that's very strong acceleration.
Yeah, and it does give you a lot more control. It will eventually change up.
Yeah.
But if I just drive that in sport there now,
Yep.
It's opened the exhaust up, it's tightened the shocks up a little bit, and that's just gone to drive there. It's gone from 4th back into drive and straight up to 7th. So it does eventually override. There's one thing that does let this car down is the transmission. It is from another era.
Yeah.
You really do get used to these days driving, you know, fast cars with dual clutch transmissions that are outstanding. Let's try it on the tight twisty stuff up here a little further.
Okay.
In between 2nd and 3rd, and see if we can get that to hold in a little longer.
While we're getting there, I'd just like to talk about the interior, which is really nice. last week we mentioned Peter Schreier and Albert Biermann. They worked in the design studio in Frankfurt for Kia. So obviously what they did is they went down to the local Europe car and hired, they said, I'd like an Audi A5 and a Mercedes C250 and a Porsche Cayenne, please. And how long would you like them for? Oh, about 3 months. And then they just pulled them apart, because here's where the AMG Mercedes vents ended. These little rocker switches here for the cooling are straight out of a Cayenne. You've got an Audi flat bottom steering wheel. This is pure Audi.
Yeah.
And they unashamedly just nicked everything. And good luck to them. It's not quite BMW.
No, it's not quite. But the quality of the car is really good, and Napa leather.
Yeah.
Cooling, air-conditioned seats.
Oh, my
heated
favourite.
seats.
I love cool seats. Would you like to have a little ferret blowing cold air up your bum? How much would you like? 3 ferrets?
Maximum.
Maximum?
Yeah.
3 ferrets.
I go back into comfort mode. You can hear the exhaust note change. Back into sport, it just opens it up. Does tighten the steering up a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not noticing a lot of difference on the feel of steering. It feels, if anything, a little vague in the steering to
I
me.
found that. Even in sport mode, it surprised me. It didn't feel like that i30N did last week.
Yeah.
You know, the mark of a good car is the faster you drive it, the smaller it feels.
Yeah.
It feels like a big car.
It does, doesn't it?
How do you like the ride? It's pretty firm.
Yeah, well, I just went on to sport, and you really can, it does stiffen those dampers up, you can feel that.
Even in comfort mode, though, it's reasonably firm by normal people's standards. But here are your hills coming up.
You know, one thing I do like with this car is the way it really puts the power down out of the corners. It's a really impressive engine, isn't it? You have to say, you can feel the torque, it just pulls and pulls. Yeah, and if we come out of there and just give it a bit. I mean, that's impressive. There was no stability control intervening there at all. That was just a really well sorted chassis and a good set of tyres gripping the road.
Pilot Sport 4s, not 4Ss, just 4s.
So there you go,
A little bit there.
You can feel it. That is putting a lot of power through those rear wheels, and I did trumpet silly, stupidly early. You can always already feel that the engine is really that's the heart of this car. It is a superb engine.
I think the cool seats are the heart of this car. I'm loving it.
You're a bit soft in your old age, too.
Yeah.
You know, if you flick it down to second there.
Yeah.
Third.
Excellent torque.
You know, it shifts okay. So
Yeah.
the transmission does feel of a generation ago. It doesn't feel quite up to where the rest of this car is. But if you want to do a little bit of spirited driving, put it into sport, use the paddles, it'll work pretty well.
I think there's a warning
There's a
here.
delay there on acceleration, and it's not the engine, it's the transmission. Just not quite wanting to do what you want it to do. I don't like the fact that it really doesn't give you a blip on the throttle on a downshift, and you expect that these days. The motor's brilliant.
Isn't it? A little bit of enhancement to the audio coming through the stereo then.
Yeah, which is a little bit lame, and you really don't need it with a car like this. It does have a really nice engine note anyway.
But at least they don't charge you $1,050 like Porsche does for it in the Taycan.
Yeah.
Sorry, Porsche.
It'd be nice to have a slightly firmer brake pedal.
4-pot Brembos. Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, 225s on the front, 255s on the rear.
These days, I mean, it's good that it's got Brembos, and of course Brembos are fantastic, but...
When it first came out, I was at Bathurst in the rain, and a well-known famous Australian rally driver was taking around the track, and 3 laps, and yes, he was starting to get a soft pedal.
Yeah.
But it's 1,780 kilos of road car.
Doesn't surprise me.
It's at Bathurst, 270k downhill. It takes a lot of stopping. It's no surprise.
This would be honking on down Conrad Straight, wouldn't it?
Yep.
You know, some 6-spot calipers on the front would definitely help. I like the fact you don't need to turn the wheel a lot. You know, the ratio of steering is good. There's not a lot of lock in these corners, and it just allows you to keep a really good sort of fixed grip on the steering wheel without having to move your hands.
Yep.
Even on some of the tighter hairpin corners here, I really like that.
Steering is so important to me in the way a car drives, and it's still not feeling like a small car when you start to drive it fast.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Stu.
You know, when they first came out, there was a lot of fuss because Holden had just shut down a year or so before, And everyone was saying, oh, this will be the new VE or VF Commodore SS. All those guys that can't get a XR6 turbos or things like that, they'll want one of these. And it just didn't really happen, did it?
Not really. You know, they haven't sold all that well. And I think really all of those buyers, Australian buyers that is, who were in the market for those kinds of cars, just pretty much all went and bought dual cab utes, didn't they?
They did. It's Toyota SR5 Hilux, the Ford Ranger, Wild Track, and Mitsubishi Triton. They're everywhere now. But they didn't stick with the sedan. They sort of gave up on it. When Holden and Ford went, they sort of said, no, we're not doing sedans anymore. It's either a four-wheel drive, a proper one, a Land Cruiser, Series 200, or a Prado or a Kluger, or, as you point out, a dual cab.
The world's gone mad on mid-range SUVs. I don't know why.
Not a fan.
You can probably fit as much into one of these as you can in any mid-range SUV.
Look at that boot. It is huge. And it's a hatchback as well.
Yeah.
So the sedan is dead. Poor old Kia came into a market that was sort of already...
Yeah, it was already declining, wasn't it? But, you know, they've built a really good car. There's a lot to like about it.
Yeah. And space. Very nice back seat. A little bit low in headroom. You know, there is a car that I'd like to compare it to. I reckon the 540i M Sport is a pretty direct competitor to this car. It's new, it's a lot more expensive. Both of them rear-wheel drive, both of them 8-speed gearboxes, 7 airbags, you know, very, very much matching on paper. In almost every other way. Dimensions, the BMW is just 4 inches longer, but this car is lower. Power's the same, 250 kilowatts, 274 kilowatts. You know, that'd be one of the benchmark cars.
But price-wise?
Well, second-hand, it's another $30,000. Do you know what the clincher is? 7-year warranty.
Yeah.
BMW 3-year warranty.
And that's something Kia does so well, don't they? The warranties. This is a well-built car. It feels really rigid on the road. There's no rattles, there's no squeaks. It's got 56,000 Ks on it. It's aged pretty well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Been driven a lot, been driven pretty hard.
By Claudia.
I absolutely love my car.
She came out of a Mustang, which she quite enjoyed, but she said this car is so much better, just so much more refined and elegant, and knocked all the rough edges off, and also back seat, Mustang, hopeless.
Yeah.
Spec sheet. Look, it's got lots of things in it. I'm 65 years old. I can't read that. Look at all these things here. It's got this thing and that thing and other things.
You know, visibility's not bad. A-pillars, okay. Visibility out the back, it's a very small aperture with that rear windscreen. That's a little disconcerting, but giant mirrors on the side. So Kia have compensated for that.
Oh, there it goes.
That's it.
Look how you're going on the gravel. Yes. Hey, wake up, dopey. Oh, thank you.
Driving for dummies. Why do we really need lane departure warnings and blind spot warnings? If you've got your mirror set up right, you don't need any of that stuff if you're paying a little bit of attention. But look, it's an interesting styling, isn't it? For me, I think when they designed this car, they were a little unsure what they were trying to come up with. It looks like it's an amalgam of a few different things. Having said that, it does look different and it's kind of cool. I don't dislike the shape of it, the look of it.
Quite like these.
Yeah.
They're nice, aren't they?
Yeah. A little bit of the black chrome looks good. Lots of fake vents. These look ridiculous. I really don't know why manufacturers do this. It just does look pretty lame. And all I needed to do was drill a few holes in there and make them real. But anyway.
Then they'd actually work. They'd serve a real purpose.
These vents actually work. Exhausting a bit of air that comes through the front, around the wheels, just to tidy up a bit of airflow and out through there. So that's kind of cool. The fake vents I don't like. The exhausts on the back, I think really, they look very cool. And they are real, they're not fake exhausts that we see a lot of these days. And they actually work and they do sound good. The engine has a nice note. And it's aged pretty well considering this is a 2018 car.
It's only 4 years old.
Yeah, that's all aged really nicely.
The model update that's just come out, it's hardly changed. Just the rear taillight assembly.
Minor changes, isn't it? Just facelift.
And added 4 horsepower, and that's about it.
Different exhaust, I believe. Different badges. Update the look of the car. But yeah, all in all, kind of a cool looking car.
So we haven't mentioned the elephant in the room yet. That is...
Which is?
Well, we're in a Kia. And Kia, 10 years ago, we had a Rio, a Sorento, Grand Carnival, Optima, a Sportage, all of which were boring cars
weren't they?
Built for people who weren't interested in cars and just wanted to get from A to B. So then along came our German friends, and Kia started making cars for people that want to drive cars. And good on them. Huzzah!
I guess this has been a bit of a hero car. This has probably got a lot of attention from people that would have never looked at Kia, even if they didn't buy one of these. I think it's given the brand quite a lot of credibility.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't buy these cars. They haven't sold all that well.
If I was to offer you and say you could buy this car for 55 grand, or you could buy the equivalent, as I mentioned before, the 540i BMW M Sport for around 85 grand. And this is a slightly faster car.
Yeah.
The interior, as nice as this is, the BMW is next level,
it's
more
quite a bit
opulent.
better, yeah. Definitely.
And ride and steering, I think you'll find, will be more to your taste.
Yeah.
But
You'd buy a BMW for 80 plus grand that's out of warranty, or one of these that's still probably got 3 years on it. You know, that's probably the clincher, and the warranty factor there is huge. Yeah, but I like these. I think they're great. They're a really fun car to drive. And here in Australia, we still have a couple of our state police forces are using these, I believe, for their highway patrol cars.
Yeah, Queensland and Tasmania.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah. Nice.
Thank you, Claudia. It's a really interesting, quirky car. That's why we have it here in inCARnation, and we certainly enjoyed driving it today, Stuart, haven't we?
Indeed. After the brilliant i30N last week, maybe we've been a bit spoiled lately. Both Mark and I wanted to love the Stinger. We really admire the change in Kia in the last few years, and we hoped this car would be a revelation. But ultimately we handed it back a little disappointed in some respects. First, the good news. If you're the sort of person who buys a car with your head as well as your heart, that 7-year unlimited kilometres warranty is really significant. The turbo motor is so flexible and reasonably frugal. In sport mode, it just whisks you from standstill up to speed with less effort than anything I can remember. As a daily driver, and if you don't mind a firmish ride, it ticks all the boxes for any reasonable person in terms of practicality, safety, comfort, heaps of convenience features, and a huge amount of space, except maybe rear headroom. It may not quite match the Germans in terms of luxurious appointments, but it's close, and a lot cheaper, and it does match them for outright pace. If you're attached to the raucous V8 in your old SS Commodore or Mustang, well, it'll be quick enough, but it may be too refined for you. The bad news? Mark didn't really like the rather outdated transmission, and the brake pedal feel was inconsistent when you get serious. Steering feel also is really important, but to both of us it felt a little over-assisted and wooden. Fine for a luxury car, but a little detached for a pure sports sedan. So we were happy to hand it back, with thanks to Claudia. We didn't love it as much as we hoped we would, but she does, and you might, and that's what matters. Thanks for watching inCARnation Australia, and well done Kia, keep them coming. Huzzah!
Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!